that's where this came out of. It was like the third client in a week where I'd had a conversation about measurement. And, you know, they're measuring activity, but activity doesn't equal impact, right?
Hello and welcome to episode 313 of the Rockstar CMO effing marketing podcast, a proud member of the Marketing Podcast Network. I'm your host, Ian Truscott. I'm not a rockstar, but I am a B2B CMO and now managing partner at Velocity B. It's Sunday, the 15th of March. Apologies for being a day late this week. It's Mother's Day weekend here in the UK, so I was out yesterday, but happy Mother's Day to all the mums out there. Including my chum Cathy McKnight, the chief problem solver at Seventh Bear, who joins me in the studio this week to discuss marketing metrics. And Robert Rose is back in the Rose and Rockstar, our virtual bar, to share his blend of marketing and mixology. But first, we need to pay the bar tab. I'll be back in a moment.
We'll be right back after this word.
We'll be right back
After this word.
You may know you're listening to this show along the Marketing Podcast Network, but did you know there are other great shows on MPN to help your business? Heather Eck hosts an amazing show called Your Radiant Spirit. Heather, tell listeners about the show.
What if the colors you're drawn to, the creative urges you ignore, and the quiet intuitive hits you brush off are actually trying to tell you something? Your Radiant Spirit is the podcast that helps you listen and live with greater clarity and purpose.
And where can people subscribe?
You can find and subscribe at heathereck.com/yourradiantspirit on marketingpodcast.net or search for it wherever you get your podcasts.
You heard her. Go subscribe.
This episode is brought to you by Indeed. Stop waiting around for the perfect candidate. Instead, use Indeed sponsored jobs to find the right people with the right skills fast. It's a simple way to make sure your listing is the first candidates see. According to Indeed data, sponsored jobs have 4 times more applicants than non-sponsored jobs. So go build your dream team today with Indeed. Get a $75 sponsored job credit at Indeed.com/podcast. Terms and conditions apply.
Welcome back, Cathy, to Rockstar CMO FM, or should I call it, as you just did, Gardening and Content with Ian and Cathy?
Well, I think I called it Gardening and Content with Cathy and Ian, but yes, let's bring in the podcast, shall we?
That should be your podcast. Like your podcast needs to come back anyway, I think.
Yes, yeah, I'm working on it.
You should, and but also, I had a really good guest a couple of weeks ago. So, for the listeners that aren't familiar with Cathy's podcast, it was called Uncharted Journeys, or it is called Uncharted Journey. It's just on hiatus at the moment, where you interviewed, and I've completely surprised you with this because this isn't what we were planning to talk about. You interviewed high achieving female women. Sorry. I tried.
So good.
Women. and they told their story about how they got to where they got to, and it was a really nice podcast. I really enjoyed it. A lot of lessons for all of us.
Yes.
So next time you're doing it, I had a really good guest a couple of weeks ago that the listeners may have listened to, Lisa Bonanno, who I used to work with at Tazoo, and I think she'd be fabulous for your show. But I don't know whether we should be talking about that sort of thing in public. But anyway, there you go. There's some recommendations. But yeah, I think you should start it again because I think there's a appetite for that podcast out there. But you are planning on starting again.
I am, yes.
I won't put you on the spot with that.
Yeah.
But anyway, back to gardening and content with Cathy and Ian. Where are we? You're still under snow, although we are recording this a week or so before it goes live. So you're not under snow by the time the listener listens to this. But are you still under snow? Are you crocusing?
We are.
We
still have a good couple of feet. So, like 60 or so centimeters of snow, but it's melting quickly. We're going up to I think it's supposed to go up to 7 degrees today. Yeah. That's 7 degrees Celsius. So for you Fahrenheit people, that would be around 40. And so it melts pretty quickly this time of year, but we've probably still got one good snowstorm left before all is said and done.
Wow. Yeah, we're apparently going to get up to, I mean, unseasonably warm here. We're going to get up to 15 degrees apparently tomorrow.
Nice.
Which is ridiculous. Ridiculous. But anyway, yes, my daffodils are popping up and my crocuses are crocusing. I've even got hyacinths. I've never planted hyacinths before, and I've got hyacinths.
Nice. Well, they're so hardy, right? Nothing's going to stop them.
Yeah. All right. That's enough of this episode of Gardening and Content with Cathy McKnight and Ian Truscott.
That's right.
Let's move on to the actual show. And I'm really enjoying your series. Apart from enjoying your podcast, I am currently enjoying your Bear Essentials series, which you're now releasing every week on the seventhbear.com website.
That's right.
And one of them, we don't talk. We talk nearly monthly or so. So a few come out in between, and then I get to cherry pick the one that I like the look of that I think will fit the audience that we're going to talk about. And a couple of weeks ago, you talked about your KPIs are measuring activity, not impact, which immediately caught my eye. And you talk about teams measuring the business of your team, not the effectiveness of your strategy. So following on with the format of your Bear Essentials, why does this matter, Cathy?
So one of the things, our clients, sometimes there's like weird and wacky, oh my gosh, like this is new, this is great, and you're solving for something unique or idiosyncratic. One of the most common things we see probably across upwards of 90, if not more, of our clients is they think they have a really good measurement and reporting program, and they don't, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because that's where this came out of. It was like the third client in a week where I'd had a conversation about measurement, and they're measuring activity, but activity doesn't equal impact, right?
Mm-hmm.
So what I love is most marketing teams are full of numbers. Like they can, we have so much data, and nobody's ever complained that they don't have enough data, right?
Yeah.
But they don't actually answer the question of, the data they're collecting is what changed because we did this.
Yeah.
Teams measure number of assets, page views, downloads, email opens, impressions, and those are great. I mean, activity indicators are absolutely important, but they're not business outcomes.
Yeah.
And so views and engagement, it shows effort. It shows where people are in their journey, the stage of the journey, perhaps. But, more and more companies are looking to all of their teams to say, hey, what have you done for me lately, right? Like what impact have you had to help them move the business forward?
Yeah. And it's especially tough for content teams because businesses struggle with how to measure content and creative teams, and it turns into being about the number of things that get created, which isn't an answer, is it? Like to your question you just posed, which is, what have you done for me lately? Well, I did 5 white papers. No. What have you achieved? What have you done? What's the outcome, right?
Yeah. Executives, they care about pipeline and revenue influence and, customer lifetime value and deal velocity and all the things, right? And so marketing needs to be connected to those outcomes. I am not a huge fan of attribution. I've yet to see a company who does it well, so I don't like to use that word. But they can show impact, right? They can show the value that they're contributing, and when they can't, that's when their budgets get cut. That's where they end up being looked at as tactical, not strategic. And marketing becomes a cost center. I come from a world, my career started off in internal comms, which was always a cost center, right? Nobody looked at it as value add. Yet study after study after study for the decades that I've been in business will tell you that investing in employee communications, looking at your internal audience and treating them as an audience, as a customer, will provide way more in the long run in terms of innovation and profitability and all of those things than anything external. And yet there's still companies who don't understand that.
Well, it's interesting, isn't it? Sometimes the little turns we take in our conversations, because that internal comms topic I've not covered it recently, but there's a famous quote which is marketing shouldn't be trusted to marketers, right? Your employees are your best advocates and your best sneezers.
Number one marketers.
Yeah, exactly. And so we should chat about I'm sure you've probably published something about internal comms at some point, but we should chat about that it is incredibly important, especially in large organizations. The other thing as well is that I was having a conversation with a chum the other day, and we were talking about acquisitions, and we were talking about the story when you get acquired or you're the acquirer, the importance of having that story straight, because you're creating a culture, you're creating a new culture, and that business that's coming into your business, you need to say, I'm ready for you. We've got a story. You're part of something. And I think internal comms plays a huge role in all of that stuff, right?
Yeah, I've been through 3 acquisitions and mergers or mergers, right?
Yeah.
PwC, IBM, and Aon Hewitt. And
just small ones then.
Just small little ones. No big deal. And I will tell you that none of them went well. None of them were handled. When PwC was kind of okay, because the company that I was with at the time, they were seen as sort of a unique little, a bit of a, let them do their thing because they're incredibly profitable and let's not muck with them.
Let's not break it.
Let's not break them. So we were really fortunate for that. So the PwC acquisition really was, the name on my paycheck changed, but not a lot else changed. But the IBM one, I mean, they acquired PwC Consulting. So I don't know, 70,000, 80,000 employees.
Wow.
And the weird thing is then IBM, and I know we're totally going off track, so we'll get back to our actual topic. Is then whenever an employee, regardless of whether they were a new grad hire or whether they were an executive hire, as an individual person being brought into IBM, you went to IBM University. You spent 5 full days learning about IBM, the business, the divisions, the culture, the history, the strategy, the hashtag all of the things. And of course, I guess they couldn't do that for 70,000 people at once. So we got nothing.
Oh, wow.
Zero. It was mind blowing, right? And then Aon Hewitt was a whole other kettle of fish. And the irony there is they're human capital firms, so they're supposed to know how to do this. Well, so you know what? Let's talk about internal comms on the next one. But it's the same kind of thing. When getting back to our topic on data and insights and stuff like that, it's companies think they're doing the right things, and they're not. They're just because they've got the information, they're doing something. They're not looking at it with a critical eye. I used to, some of the things that we're seeing really common right now, and I laugh because when I first started into consulting and was building sites, my first sort of technical side of things, people would say, "Oh yeah, we got tons of report," and I used to call it the data Barf Binder, because they would produce these, they'd be super proud, right? It would be like a 1-inch, 2-inch binder that they'd print out regularly. And they had the inserts and it was all sorted. And it would be like, look at this. And they drop in, it's super impressive. I'm like, great. How do you use it? It's like, I just report it. I don't actually that's somebody else's job, right? So now that 2-inch data Barf Binder has just turned digital. Right. So they have all of these charts and graphs and numbers and metrics and whatnot, but they never or rarely answered, okay, based on this, what should we do differently next time?
Yeah, I once worked for a CMO of an organization that had a number of company. It was a roll-up, lots of different companies, and one of the marketing directors in one of the operational companies was required to produce a big PowerPoint deck for the board of that company. And he'd have to say to me, I'm going to be out for 2 days doing this. You're like, what the fuck? No, I need to get the board pack ready. And that's 2 days of his time. And a lot of that actually was about being ready for any question that might get asked. Right?
Yeah.
So it's like, It's completely wasted because, and I think if you know what the objectives are and you know what the conversation is going to be like and what the data agenda is going to be, then you do that. But honestly, he was like, I need to have everything just in case. So it's a bit like that Barf Binder, but it was a Barf PowerPoint. So, although I like data Barf Binder, but it just needs a B at the beginning. That's sort of bad. Like that.
Better alliteration.
Yeah. So yes, getting us back to our conversation. So clearly, we're measuring activity, we're measuring things, just the busy work of an internal organization, demonstrating that, sort of proving our own existence or validating our own existence.
Yeah.
So, and you're seeing that with your clients. So what are you advising clients? How do we move out of that? Because it's a two-way street, right? One is the marketing team needs to say to the people that are asking for these reports, no, you don't need these reports. And then the other side is educating the C-suite to say, these are the reports you need. So how does that actually work out when you're advising your client?
So they've got to be connected with the strategy and the goals. And again, one of the things we counsel is you can't be deciding what you're going to measure after the fact, right? So you've got to put the metric of success at the outset of the initiative, whether it's a piece of content, whether it's a campaign, whatever it is how is this going to be measured? So who's it for? Why do we want to talk to them? And what's the metric of success? Because sometimes the metric of success is, we're not sure. We just really want to try this. We think it's going to work. So let's see what happens. And you set a bar, you think it's going to do this, and then you measure it and go, yes, it did, or no, it didn't. And then you adjust accordingly, right? But And I'm not saying for a second that there shouldn't be metrics from a production standpoint. Like there should be some of that, but it needs to be informing, the data should be informing performance and how to improve as opposed to the numbers game, right? So content teams are really good at, they can tell you how many blogs they did, the number of campaigns, number of downloads, which turns into this perpetuating cycle of do more rather than do better. Right? Yeah. And because of that, the focus on we need more, we hear, and I've held a couple of vendors to task on this because they talk about velocity. And it's not about velocity. It's not about volume. It's about quality, pertinence, and context.
Absolutely.
So when it's constantly do more, we want this, with teams get frustrated. They're burning out and there's too much pressure, right? So writers are rushed to create. If there's a strategy, they're not taking the time and they don't have the time to refer back to it and say, okay, how does this tie back? And then content becomes this route activity rather than a creative one. So you end up with kind of like meh, as opposed to like, wow, this is awesome.
Yeah. I've seen that with performance teams as well, or web teams, where there was one web team where that I was working with, and they were being lauded for the amount of web traffic they had. We'll talk about vanity metrics, no doubt, in this conversation, Cathy. But when you dug into it, you realized that the traffic was coming from countries they didn't even have offices in. Right? It was just cheap. It was cheap paid traffic, and you're like, well, this is tantamount to fraud almost. But they were so driven by the fact their numbers needed to be better than the previous quarter that they were addicted to this gravy train that you're talking about. Gravy train's the wrong word, but this kind of, we're 10% better. What does better mean? You've just got more shit in. You know what I mean? It's not. You're not 10% more relevant. You're not 10% more engaging. We're not making 10% more revenue out of this.
No, and it's kind of ironic with, all the data that we have now and the technology that's evolved to actually be able to leverage the data. There was a point where we had all this information and you needed a degree in business intelligence to decipher it, right? To be able to pull it down, to be able to access it and crunch it and all the things. I mean, I go back to my SAP BI days, right? Like you need it. You had to be trained on how to do it. You don't have to be now. So it's really funny that companies have built these incredibly sophisticated ways to measure, yet what they're doing is they're measuring how busy marketing is rather than the impact that they're making.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Are you a fan? I mean, you quite like process and those kinds of things. Are you a fan of the OKR model?
Understatement of the world, yes.
So, you have your objectives, key results,
Key results.
and that starts with what are the objectives of the whole company, and then that ladders right down. I've been a part of that process, which obviously, I don't have the same, was it left brain or right brain that you do, but so obviously I had some resistance and difficulty with it in the beginning. But as it started to work, I've been a huge fan ever since, because I think that if you implement the OKR thing really well, and you have these sort of 3 or 4 pillars at the very top of what the company's trying to achieve, and then as you ladder down, whatever you're doing in marketing has to be associated with one of these OKRs, right? So you've got that instant kind of line, this red thread up to, well, this is an important thing to do. And I think is that the sort of thing that you advise and that you get implemented?
Absolutely. So we're huge fans of OKRs, although honestly, OKRs, KPIs, just have one, like just have a methodology, right? Like just follow something. So there's, do it away, just do it, right? So there's generally 3 things that we advise. So absolutely OKR, and start with the business change that you want. So the O of the OKR, right? Yeah. Don't start with content metrics.
No.
But what change should this content create, right? Yeah. So are you looking at an internal thing, reducing sales cycle time, increasing deal size, improving onboarding, improving conversion, and which conversion? That's another thing. So many companies only think of conversion as that dollar exchange, right? And there's so many others depending on the stage of the journey. Yeah. And then once you have the O, then what are 1 or 2, 3 outcome metrics? And they should be internal and external, right? So internally, time to decision, asset reuse, that kind of things. And then, external, the conversion to the next stage. Not necessarily conversion, as far as a dollar exchange or a credit card being shared, but moving them to the next phase. And that's a big challenge because, like I said, a lot of organizations, they don't have a definition of conversion, right? Yeah, so they don't know what that conversion is, except for if there is money in that.
I had a client engagement once where I was brought in by the CMO of a financial business technology company kind of thing. And he had a very large marketing team. And he was like, well, there's something off here. I don't know what it is. And I'd like you to go and research it. And he had some ideas. And some of that was down to the fact that each marketing team had its own metrics, and they were not, when they laddered up, they didn't support each other. They were conflictory. And to the point that the web team wanted to delete a load of content because they were kind of measured on the engagement and the web hits. And there was the particularly quiet part of the website, which when they did the website audit, they're like, nobody cares about this content. But then when you looked at it in the broader sense, this was a product line that was purchased by a very small number of organizations, but it was a very expensive piece of software and had a very high margin for them. So there was a very small buying group, and that's why there was not very much traffic. And so you view something through the lens of one team with their metric, and you can say, delete that content there because I'm rewarded on web hits and they don't have them. And it would up my average hit rate per page or some shit like that, right? So, and I'm sure you see that kind of stuff all the time.
Well, that actually beautiful segue to the third thing that we recommend is that, marketing rarely drives results on their own, right? Setting metrics for success needs to be collaborative and involve marketing, sales, product, customer success, brand, events, CSRs. Because when the teams align on shared outcomes, the data starts to mean something. So you personified it like exactly right. Is if everybody's looking at from their own individual silo, then they're not going to understand the connection and how the different pieces work together. So this is where accountability for marketing really settles, right? This is where it lives, is linking marketing actions to the financial outcomes like growth or profitability.
Yeah. But that's why that's sometimes the problem with the KPI model, isn't it? Is that it's a key performance indicator, and that can become very siloed and just about that particular function. So you're like, oh well, I need to create a KPI for content marketing. Well, then it's going to be about production, without considering, well, what are our KPIs up here, and how does that which I think I'm sounding like a zealot for the OKR model, but I think that the OKR model just seems to lend itself more naturally to that organizational structure of measurement.
It does, because KPIs, like you said, can be siloed and random. And if everything's a KPI, then nothing's important.
No, exactly.
Right.
Yeah,
so when you tie it back to an objective or a goal or a strategic initiative, whatever it is, then that's where it makes the difference. So having KPIs are fine, but they need to roll up to something. They can't just be, here we go.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that was your bare essentials. Your KPIs are measuring activity, not impact. And what I should point out, actually, because I know we've just spent 20 minutes discussing it, is these are really tight, punchy posts, right? So with these things bulleted out with some really good advice and stuff. And at the end of that, you then refer to a longer piece that we can enjoy from Seventh Fair. And in this particular one, you refer to one of Robert's posts called Brand Strategies. Number one metric, good things. And I'm putting up the air quotes, good things, which is also a good read. But it also taught, what I liked about it when I was looking at reread, I think I've seen it before, so I was probably rereading it today, is this nuance around vanity metrics. And we talked about vanity metrics just a minute ago, because I quite like what Robert says here, that aren't all awareness metrics vanity metrics by definition. And I think that sometimes we get, and we do this a lot with a lot of different things, we get a bit carried away with being something's alive or dead or in or out or
good or bad.
And everybody's slagging off vanity metrics, saying we need to be linked to the business. But so where do you think vanity metric, because I just want to pay a little service to vanity metrics.
Absolutely.
Where does that fit into the conversation we just had?
So metrics like awareness and impressions, page views, engagement, neither Robert or I are under any kind of dissolution that they're going away, that people are just going to stop measuring those things, right? And they're not inherently bad, right? They only become a vanity metric when they're disconnected from a purpose or an outcome. So as I said, KPIs, same thing. KPIs in themselves are not bad, but when they're not an key performance indicator of what? What is that indicating of? What is the objective? What is the goal, right? So many vanity metrics simply, they're good early sign indicators, right? Of brand impact. So that's still an indicator of progress, but that can't be the be all end all.
Exactly. And it needs to keep conceptualizing what we were saying earlier on, which is what is the relevant audience? How many of them are there? And what would be a reasonable level of vanity metric for you to penetrate them? Like I was saying earlier on, like if you just say, I want more of them, you're going to end up with, crappy campaigns that bring the wrong people to your website and doing the downloads.
Yeah.
At some point, presumably, there's a ceiling on the vanity metrics or the awareness metrics, shall we call them that, because your audience is only finite, right?
Yeah. So again, the metric itself, you can't say, like I would never say that awareness is a vanity metric, full stop, drop the mic, walk off the stage. It becomes a vanity metric when it doesn't inform decisions, when it's not tied to a business outcome, when it isn't part of a broader measurement plan or program, right? So like you think about page views, great. It looks at how many page views did we get? But to your point, are these page views from the right audience, right? Awareness. Yay, we got 1 million impressions. Well, fantastic. But did it increase the recall of the brand? How many times? I mean, we just finished the Olympics, and this is top of mind because I was just talking about it with a friend yesterday, is we were like, did you see the ad with the thing and the what? And wasn't that amazing? And neither of us could remember what brand it was for, right? So how many times have you remembered the ad?
Oh, yeah.
So it's snappy, it's great, it's impactful, it's emotional, but you don't remember the company that it's for. So great that it went viral and you shared it around the world, but what did it do for your numbers? And the same with downloads, right? Okay, great, you got 10,000 downloads, Did it accelerate the pipeline?
Yeah.
Did it shorten the decision process?
Yeah. But we're also being driven. Yeah, we're also being driven to that with our personal brands, aren't we? It's like the number of LinkedIn likes, posts, impressions you got. And of course, if you were to post something vaguely controversial that would probably prevent you from getting any business ever again, that would probably go viral. Oh, look at this guy. He's spectacularly committed career suicide on LinkedIn.
That's right.
You'll go viral. You'll never work again.
Right.
It's like that kind of stuff, isn't it? Anyway, so that's fantastic. Thank you very much, Cathy. And I'll obviously add a link to this post in the show notes. But if you haven't got the show notes right in front of you, it's seventhbear.com and you can click on Bear Essentials, can't you? I think it's on the homepage or under Insights or something like that. I'm sure people can find it. And speaking of finding people, when people spin the dial on the interwebs, where are they going to find you, Cathy?
I'm on LinkedIn, Cathy with a C McKnight, McKnight. Of course, seventhbear.com is where my posts start from. Instagram, if you want to see how my garden's coming along.
Nice.
Or a picture of my dog. No more snow pictures. And just generally, if you Google me, you'll find me. So
nice. All right. Well, thank you very much, Cathy. And I'll speak to you in a couple of weeks. It sounds like we're going to be talking about internal comms.
Love it. Thanks, Ian.
All right. See you then. Bye-bye.
Cheers.
Thank you, Cathy. And I will include a link to her paused podcast in the show notes, as I think the interviews are pretty evergreen, so worth a listen and check back on that. And I checked the weather today, and it is still snowing in Toronto, even though we recorded that over a week ago. Right, time to wind down into the weekend and join Robert Rose, Chief Troublemaker at Seventh Bear, in our virtual bar, the Rose and Rockstar, as I pick his brains over one of his classic cocktails.
Hello, my friend, and welcome to the bar.
Thank you very much, mate. How are you doing?
I'm doing very well. It's the weekend.
Yep.
It's hotter than Hades here in Southern California, which is just weird for March. But other than that, I'm doing very well.
Nice. Yeah, we've had some strange weather, some strangely good weather here as well, and then some dreadful rain, as you'd expect. What is going on with the weather? Anything big?
I don't know. Something climate change. But yeah, it's very strange. You know, because meanwhile, all my friends on the East Coast, including our common friend Cathy McKnight up in Toronto, they're in freezing and they're getting more snow right now.
More snow in March.
Yeah.
Oh my
right.
God.
I mean,
oh my
crazy.
God. Yeah. All right, fella. Well, we'll drink to that, shall we?
Yes, we have a cocktail. We have a lovely cocktail. So this is in celebration of St. Patrick's Day, which of course is next week.
Yeah.
And so I thought I'd bring it to bear. Happy St. Patrick's Day to all those who observe. I don't observe. I don't give a shit about it. I'm Scottish, and so it was never a thing in my house growing up. So
no.
In fact, as we've talked about on this show before, being that my mother and my grandfather and that whole side of my family was Scottish, it was like, no, there was a certain thing against the Irish, right? So anyway,
I was brought up in an Irish. I spent a few years in an Irish town during my formative. Well, but a town with a large Irish population. I developed a taste for Guinness when I was 17, and I'm English, so they're supposed to not like me at all. So,
I do love Guinness. I love a good Irish whiskey too. I love good Irish whiskey, and I love. And by the way, gin. I mean, which is we often talk about here. But I spent some time in God, where was I? It was some place in Ireland where at the hotel they had a menu that was literally pages long of all of the different local gins that they had. At every what you would do is you would get a flight of gins. So you would get 3 or 4 little sort of almost test tube size, but basically little flasks, if you will, of gin. And then you would get another flight of all these other infusions, right? So maybe it was dandelion or, sage or whatever. And you could mix and match and sort of make your own sort of custom cocktail at your table. It was the coolest thing ever.
That sounds like an amazing evening.
It was lovely. Yeah, it was lovely. Well, tonight, we're going to have the White Irish, which is a vodka drink, actually.
Yeah.
And it's going to be basically vodka. Start with 1 ounce, basically 1 part of your favorite vodka. Don't need a good one because you're gonna ruin it. And not that you can ruin vodka. I mean, vodka's fucking
ruined
vodka.
already.
So, anyway, your favorite vodka. And then with a little green creme de menthe. It's really simple, and it's a half part of that. And then you don't need any simple syrup. The recipe calls for simple syrup. I don't think you need it. With the creme de menthe, it's sweet enough. And basically a little mint you're going to want, for a garnish. But basically you take the creme de menthe, the vodka, and then add a little, like 2 parts cream, and full cream here. And basically you're going to put all of that into a shaker. You're going to shake it up really well with ice in there. And then you're going to strain that into a martini glass. And the cream is going to rise to the top, which is lovely. And it's basically going to create this beautifully green little drink, and then garnish with a little bit of mint, and away we go.
Nice. Very nice. Very nice. So, this week, we're going to talk about somebody that you disagree with quite a lot, but what you would agree with him on, he does like a pint of Guinness. And that is Mark Ritson. And and I heard you talking about a particular article he's written on, as usual, we're the after party of the This Old Marketing podcast with these cocktails. So you mentioned it on your podcast, an article that Mark Ritson had written in Adweek, talking about the death of marketing jobs, and based on some research from Anthropic. The article was called 65% of marketing jobs may not survive AI. Quite, clickbaity kind of title. And you had an issue with that. Would you like to discuss? Now we're in the bar.
Yeah.
Get off your chest.
Here is this. I mean, where to start? I'm happy for Mark that he's found a new place at Adweek for his mini MBA and all of that. And he's clearly been assigned the task of writing every week now, which he does. He writes a column. So good for him. And great for him that he's got a platform. He needs somebody to feed him better story ideas, though, because this is just a stupid one. Basically, he's calling this report into, and it's a report that was issued last week. And by the way, there are a lot of other media outlets reporting on this report from Anthropic. And it's basically Anthropic launched what many of the frontier LLMs have launched, which is sort of a labor market impact report, right? So sort of original research on how AI is affecting the labor market. And so ostensibly, most of these reports tend to be which jobs are most at risk from the growth of generative AI, agentic AI as part of it. And if you actually read the report, Mark's article makes not at all any sense, because his headline is basically 65% of marketing jobs may not survive AI, except that's not what the report says at all. And in fact says not quite the opposite, but basically he's either or purposely missed the definition of what they're actually trying to report. The report itself is actually quite good. I actually thought and got a lot out of of Anthropic's report here, but he comes on to basically say, look, 65% of these marketing jobs may not exist, and he takes that from, because they cover all manner of jobs in the report. They cover finance and education and legal and transportation and production and all sorts of different job categories. And marketing is one of them. But basically one of the occupations that they cover and what they call their observed exposure is marketing research analysts and marketing specialists. And they basically observe that 64.8% or 65%, if you round up, which they did, and basically, and the leading automated task that they, that the observed exposure sort of identifies is the preparation of reports and findings, and basically the illustration of data graphically and turning basically, complex findings into written text. In other words, looking at numbers, looking at trends, looking at things and creating reports, right? Which, by the way, is 0% of most marketing jobs these days, right? The number of marketers who are actually doing that on a day-to-day basis is pretty low. But he goes on to sort of then, talk about how, and I think rightfully so, he talks about how the marketing function is largely a language-based idea, and that, that AI could end up replacing with it. And then he makes the sort of recommendations, if you will, is go get trained on marketing, go get good at marketing, which I 100% agree with him with. And then he says, and then go learn to use AI tools, which I don't agree with him with.
No.
So anyway, so my what grinds my gears, I guess, to quote Family Guy, on this is not his advice necessarily, which I don't, like I said, I don't completely disagree with, but it's the FUD, the fear, uncertainty, and doubt that he's continuing, this bumper sticker bullshit of AI replacing marketing as a function, and how that's not what the report says, because, by the way, their observed exposure, quote unquote, they actually define that in the report, and they say basically what they're saying is that, and they literally, this is what the report says: observed exposure is meant to quantify of those tasks that LLMs, meaning AI, could theoretically speed up, and which are actually already seeing some automated usage in professional settings. In other words, which tasks, not jobs, which tasks could LLMs theoretically speed up? And we can already see that happening in some professional settings. And of course, things like market research, and of course, things like report creation, and of course, making sense of numbers into reports is something we're seeing. Duh, we're all seeing that, right? And so that has nothing to do with it replacing the full stack of marketing tasks, not much less the full stack of marketing jobs, right? So, so that's my problem with it. That the angle, the lens that he put on it, is like, trying to get the clicks, and the is so just not helping. It's not helping us.
So just to clarify, what you're saying there is, if we think about the 100%, which is a marketing job, whether it's an entry level job or not, this was just a proportion of that 100% are the things that AI could help with. And you're saying, and what the report was saying was only 65% of that percentage is being exposed to AI at this point, right? So that isn't even 65% of the marketer's job being taken by being taken by AI. That's just the part of their job that could be optimized with AI, right?
That's right.
Have I got that
it's
right?
Just what they're identifying in this report is they are, and I think rightfully, they are focused. If you read the report, it's focused on the tasks, right?
Yeah.
In other words, the tasks that could be automated or sped up using LLMs as a adjacent tool for whatever profession it is. Yeah. And so that element of it, as an example, for computer programmers, right? They say that's the highest one. Computer programmers, the observed exposure for that is 75%. Yeah. And the leading automated tasks that they identify there are write updates and maintain software programs. In other words, coding. And yes, we can see LLMs already starting to really do that task for coders. That doesn't mean that coders are going to get out of a job. It just means that they're going to have a tool that helps them do that job in an automated or sped up fashion, according to this report. And that 75% of computer programmers would have that observed exposure. That means there's 25 that wouldn't have that exposure per their research. But, and maybe that's, sort of, old school coders or coding where that it's truly more complex than what the learning models have in their systems or whatever it is. But that's what the research says. Now, how you conflate that with like it takes away 75% of jobs is a silly conflation.
Yeah. And one of the things I liked in your observation when you were chatting on your podcast was you were talking a lot about the place of the human in this is judgment. I think you said the word judgment a few different times, and I think that's exactly it, isn't it? Is that it's not we probably spend very little time. We even probably don't even perceive this. We probably think we spend more time doing things than we do. We spend a lot more time thinking about it and applying judgment to what's right and what's wrong. What's good what's good that we put into the LLM? What's good that comes out of the LLM? What the ideas are, what we're trying to achieve. That's the role we're going to play, right?
Yeah, I think that's exactly right. I mean, I think it's. Yeah, I think the way to think about that is, I think you're exactly right. It's the thing that we do every single day without even realizing we're doing it.
Yeah.
Which is making decisions about what should be, right? In other words, what we typically, and because it's such an inherent piece of the human experience of our jobs as and I'll speak only for marketers and creative people for a second, you inherently do it, right? You're the one who decides when the blog post is finished. You're the one who decides when the ad copy is ready to go. You're the one who decides where when to press send on the email. You're the one who decides to basically, write the bullet point that says what that ultimately, translates the numbers from the Google Analytics report to an insight report to your boss. So all of those decisioning is something that AI doesn't do. What AI will do is give you the answer, right?
Yeah.
I'm starting to call this the answer to the answer. In other words, what AI gives you is an answer. What it doesn't give you is the answer to the answer. What I mean by that is that, it will tell you what it found, and it will tell you what it, or give you a draft of a blog post. What it doesn't tell you is why or if this matters to you. Only you can decide whether or not it matters to you or the business or, those kinds of things. And every one of those things is a judgment. Some of those judgments are big. Some of them are very small. Some of them are micro. But it is you that determines it is the consumer of the actual content that determines the value, not the creator of it. And so even if AI is creating the content, it doesn't create the value. You create the value by deciding whether or not it was valuable or not. And without any standard or basis by which to assess that value, you're making an assumption that it is value simply because the AI says it's important.
Yeah.
Thus, if you buy all of that, like if you buy that chain of thought, AI can never replace marketers because it can never replace that judgment. And even if it does, then all you're doing is you're saying, I'm fine with the most probabilistic answer of whatever comes out. And so you're always going to end up average.
Yeah. And I think, so I'm hearing also the role of us as in curation, right? Because I know that in my experience of working with the LLMs is that, when I use it as an assistant to my writing, it gives me more ideas, deeper research, and those kind of things. And I'm then the curator of what I'm going to share with my audience out of all of that stuff, right? You can't just, unfiltered, publish all of it. It's too much and it's too boring. You need to add that filter onto it, right? So we're both applying judgment and we're the curators.
Exactly. All people, who articulated this well, even though I think he did it wrong, which is funny. Ben Affleck, the actor, actually, on when he was on stage, and he talked about this idea of AI creating like a screenplay or any art, right? He's creating, creating something creative, and in this case, mostly it's going to be text, right, or images.
Yeah.
And what he said was, he said basically, a craftsman knows how to create a thing, and an artist knows when to stop.
Nice.
And that's, and I love that. But I don't think, by the way, I think where he was wrong was sort of separating the idea of artist and craftsman, because I think craftsman actually knows when to stop. And so, but regardless of the semantic, fun debate we could have, but I think the idea is right. It's like, when do you stop? Like, when do you know that this is the right version? Because AI will continue to give you versions forever of whatever it is you ask it to create.
Yeah, absolutely. Cool, man. So where will people find content that has stopped at the very right place?
They'll find it on our little website at seventhbear.com.
Nice. And when people spin the dial on the interwebs, where are they going to find you, my friend?
They're going to find me on LinkedIn, and they're going to find me on my little podcast called This Old Marketing, which you referenced earlier. And that's, love everybody to listen to that little shenanigans.
It's shenanigans indeed. And more importantly for me, are you going to be in the bar next week?
Of course I will.
I'll see you then, my friend. Thank you, Robert. I hope you like that. I heard that Robert was digging into the best LLMs, and as this was something it seems like we're all deciding on at the moment, I thought it was worth sharing that conversation with you. So that's a wrap on episode 313 of the Rockstar CMO Epic Marketing Podcast. I've been your host, Ian Truscott. Thank you for putting a dime into your podcasting jukebox, selecting our track, and jiving along with us. You can find links to me, Cathy, and Robert in the show notes, and the articles and podcasts that we discussed, along with links to our blog, newsletter, and all of our previous episodes at rockstarcmo.com. Next week, Jeff Clark is back, and the proposed topic is social media enshittification. So I'm looking forward to recording that with him. And Robert is back in the bar. And in the meantime, I'll leave you with one of my favourite quotes about metrics from Mark Twain. Most people use statistics the way a drunkard uses a lamppost, more for support than illumination.
It's tax season, and at LifeLock, we know you're tired of numbers. But here's a big one you need to hear. Billions. That's the amount of money in refunds the IRS has flagged for possible identity fraud. Now here's another big number. 100 million. That's how many data points LifeLock monitors every second. If your identity is stolen, we'll fix it guaranteed. One last big number. Save up to 40% your first year. Visit LifeLock.com/podcast for the threats you can't control. Terms apply.
This podcast is heard along the Marketing Podcast Network. For more great marketing podcasts, visit marketingpodcasts.net.